Right.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome. This is Eleni of Eleni's Tribe. Tribe, how you doing today? We're here with Angeline Constantinou, life coach and founder, podcaster of Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. We were previously talking about how Angeline became a victim of domestic violence. It's not something that happens right away. It's something that takes place over a period of time. And your story is remarkable, Angeline. I mean, were you working for your husband's company from the beginning, or and there's a reason I'm asking this for those of you bear with me that are listening, but
That's a good question. I was working for him.
do you
Correct.
feel that he became jealous of you and your performance there at work? Like, do you feel like that contributed to the tension that you were having with him at home? Because a lot of times you were talking about narcissistic personality types earlier, and they can be extremely jealous, even if they don't like admit to it, or they feel threatened by somebody else on their turf, almost like a dog, in the fire hydrant story. Don't pee on my hydrant. So
I love, yeah. Yeah, actually, he did become jealous and resentful later on, probably because I was bringing in the sales and I was also working on, production work. And although it may seem like he was very proud of me, he would like, flaunt me in public. Like we would go to a five-star restaurant that we did business with and have lunch, and he would be, all lovey-dovey and everything. But behind closed doors, it wasn't like that.
okay, because he was like he was using you to show himself off
Correct.
and put on this front.
Right.
Okay, but then really deep inside, he was resentful of the fact that even though you were the one to make him look good, he was insecure and resentful of the fact that you were the one that was like shining, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, so he felt threatened by you. And then over time, as you were sharing earlier, you started to internalize and think, what can I do? You started to believe it was your fault that he was being verbally abusive and emotionally abusive, and
Right.
it all
Right.
escalated, like you told us in the last episode. It escalated in a night where you were going to take a cool down session. You were going to walk out of the room, go to the next room, and then before you know it, your face was smacked against the wall. You had a broken nose, you wound up having surgery, and then when you came back home, you said he would be on periods of good behavior, but the cycle would start again. So I was just going to ask you to clarify as we start over. You talked about a few things when you said the cycle started over again. So it would start with the verbal and emotional abuse, I'm assuming, and then describe how that chipped away at you mentally, right? And then from there, you said it became financial abuse, and you did mention that you did file for divorce. You found the strength, the courage to file for divorce. Just, I would love to hear, like, what was that like? Like, I mean, it's to say it might, one way it's freeing, but the other way it's got to be terrifying too, to like know that you're going to do this, right? So how did, just kind of, if you can go take a few steps back when you said the cycle began again, and then your thought process then, and how your thought process evolved to the point where you actually file for divorce, and then take us from there to becoming a thriver.
Okay. So when I was contemplating filing for divorce, I was scared. I was fearful because it was a huge step that I had to take. It was a huge step for me. And I was receiving, a lot of support and encouragement from, some family members. My first cousin, she always said, "You deserve better. You don't deserve this." I found out that he was talking behind my back. He was writing letters, false letters to the New York State Police and the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, admonishing me, putting me down, telling them I was crazy, I was a psychopath, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
So that when I heard what happened, when, I heard that he did that, it was time. You know how it is when you finally draw a line in the sand.
Mhm.
And I realized that I was not only in a toxic marriage, but in an abusive marriage that was not thriving anymore. And it was literally pulling me down because he wanted me to be home all the time. What happened was, I think a few years later, he retired from his business and he wanted me to be home 24/7 with him. And I found that to be unacceptable. So I started working for other companies so I could just get out of the house, and also to make a name for myself and to rebuild my life. But I realized that being with him was not the answer. I realized that I could live on my own and stand on my own 2 feet. So I drew a line in the sand, surrendered my pride and ego, broke generational curses, because in a typical Greek marriage, they say to stay no matter what. And that doesn't work with me. That, forget it. Forget it. It doesn't work. You just have to draw a line in the sand and say, that's it. And my lawyer at that time made me realize that I was in a toxic marriage. She says, right now you're grieving. You know how it is, like when you're grieving, because you feel that you're going to lose someone, but actually I was gaining my independence. So I started to go out by myself, go to restaurants, go to coffee shops by myself. I started to make some new friends, and I started to surround myself with high level people. I invested in myself and professional development. And that I said, you know what, I can do this. So I wrote a check for $5,000 to start the divorce proceedings in May of 2010. And while that was not easy, we didn't have children, which, turned out to be a blessing, because, there was just no way. There was just no way. I was just, you know, living day by day. I was sleeping in people's houses. At times I had to check into a motel room, or, like a hotel room. Um, but, you just do what you have to do. You
Mhm.
just do what you have to do. And while I was going through that, I was involved in a network marketing company, health and wellness. That was a big part, huge part of my life. That's where I started to surround myself with high level people. And I was able to build my business behind the scenes. Instead of being on social media, I was actually in the Witness Protection Bureau, they call it, like off social media, for 6 months, because I had just started Facebook and I was looking for online support. So fortunately, I found that online support. And towards the end, when I filed for divorce, when the divorce became final, then I started to, really evolve. And I moved to Saratoga Springs. I made a 1 year plan. So always have an exit plan. That's the first thing. Make a plan. And I had 3 goals in mind, obviously, to get divorced from my ex-husband now. And I'm happily divorced and single, very single, for 12 and a half years. And I'm very proud of myself, of where I have, where I am right now in my life. And that was not easy. That took a lot of work, a lot of inner work. I had to go through those trials and tribulations, and I didn't listen to my mom. I just, like how moms are sometimes, or like, Uncle, they put this thing on you. And I'm like, Mom, stop. I said, I just need to be free. I just need to be free from this person. So finally my parents wised up. And, I didn't get the support in the beginning, but towards the end, I did get the support.
So,
So
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was gonna ask you a
yeah,
question.
I did get the support, from my parents. And they had to help me with the legal fees, and I had to borrow money from them so I could just basically live. But I went from that to living on my own and making the move from Rhinebeck, New York to Saratoga Springs, New York. So I did that all in 1 year.
It's a lot of changes in 1 year. Now, so
I know.
you mentioned that he retired and he wanted you to stay home. And a lot of times you said earlier before we got online here to record, that a lot of times people think that physical abuse is this bad thing, which it is, but we minimize verbal, emotional, mental abuse, and even financial abuse. And it's equally, if not more harmful. I can't even imagine like staying with him 24/7 post retirement and having to be in that home with him all the time. Imagine work was a great outlet for you. Um, and how did you like deal with maybe family members or friends that, oh, well, you should stay because of your marriage, or you should this, or you should that. Like, did it make it difficult for you to leave, or did you get to the point where you just decided you were going to go and that was that?
I made a decision that I was going to go, and that was that, despite what other people thought.
Now, did he ever hit you again? Not that that makes it okay or not okay, but I was just out of curiosity. Did he ever get violent, physically violent again after the one incident, or did he?
He tried one, I think one other time, but it didn't work. He actually tried to punch me, and he
Wow.
missed. He missed. Um,
Because I,
but the rest of it was verbal,
because I,
verbal, verbal abuse.
yeah, and I hear a lot of times like it starts off with one thing and then it escalates like an avalanche into more. And when you say verbal abuse, do you have any examples for our listeners of things that maybe they don't think of as verbal abuse, but it is?
When they use the C word,
Oh, okay, like actual curse words,
curse words, right?
and they
Yeah,
call you out of your name. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Curse words. They're yelling at you. They're screaming at you for no reason at all. You know, um, and I saw the signs. Fortunately, I saw the signs. They talk behind your back. Like
Mhm.
he was talking behind my back to my own family members, and that's how I
Slandered
found
you,
out.
right?
Yeah, he went down a dangerous path, and
Uh,
he tried to make me the villain, and that didn't work.
Yeah, well, if he's verbally abusing you, he's hitting you, and then he's calling you crazy, that's not gonna fly. Um,
Right.
but it sounds like you have done a lot of work on yourself and you've done a lot of healing, and you've been able to not just become a survivor, but like you said, a thriver. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so actually, yes, I am thriving after, domestic abuse. And right before COVID, I started my podcast. And the reason I did that was I was working for an advertising agency, did a lot of traveling. I made money, but I said, you know what? This is not my passion. My passion is not really to, build someone else's dream. My passion is to build my own dreams. So it just started with coaching. It started with my podcast. And my podcast, I've always had a passion for helping women and also helping women getting closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because God paved the way for me.
Mm.
So God said, start your podcast 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years in December that I started my podcast because I had a vision and a dream. I also I took a mentorship class back then while I was still working in corporate America. And I realized that I needed to break free from those self-limiting beliefs. So talk about inner work. I was doing that for 30 days, over a period of, 30 days to 2 months. And that was like, but I realized that, I had to break through my own self-limiting beliefs and share my story with the world. So that's exactly where the podcast comes into play. So right now, I mean, it started as a small podcast. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea what podcast marketing was. All I knew is I had a vision and a dream, and God led me to that. And I'm blessed to say today I have launched 70 episodes because during that time, like the first year, I would do bi-weekly episodes. I wouldn't do episodes every week. But, this year I scaled up between the last year and this year. I really scaled up my podcast, and I'm blessed that I have guests from all over the world.
That's wonderful. So
Yeah.
about
So
talk about the self-limiting beliefs. I think you touched on something um, that a lot of us don't really even, we're not aware that we do it. And then I would love to talk more about how you help women find their voice using your podcast. So how did you what is an example of a self-limiting belief? How did you work through all that? You said you did like a 30-day intensive, and then
yeah.
how did that help you to launch a podcast, and how do you use your podcast to actually help women break the silence and help them find their voice?
Well, breaking through self belief means, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I'm not good enough. How can I start a podcast when I don't know anything? about, I knew nothing about podcasting, but it was through, I studied, quantum physics with Joe Dispenza, and this was part of the intensive that I was in. And I realized that, about, first of all, when you break through self-limiting beliefs, unfortunately, some of our parents have instilled
Hmm.
negative things in our lives. Like my parents would say at times, you can't do this. You just belong working in a clinic or at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, just to be a receptionist, blah, 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 because I was thinking about moving back home, but then I decided not to because I knew that there was something more for me. So when you're able to break through those self-limiting beliefs, it's sort of like breaking through generational curses
Mm.
and sharing my story because we've been taught to be quiet.
Hmm.
Oh, mi les tipota.
Yeah, don't say anything. Yeah, I know,
My
right?
mom would
Don't
say,
say anything. You're a girl. Iseglosu. You ever hear that one? Like if you say
oh yeah.
don't talk, don't say anything. If you have an opinion, you're talking back, and nobody's gonna want to marry you if you have an opinion, like
Exactly. Exactly.
like
It's
you're not
a
supposed to have an
vicious
opinion.
cycle.
And it's very, and like I don't know about your Greek mom, but my Greek mom had a lot of self-limiting beliefs on herself, and she projected them on me. So it was for me to be able to push through all that and still evolve and grow and become the person I am today. As a young woman, it took a lot of time. So yeah, me less tipo
Mi les tipota.
yeah, no. But yeah, I mean, friends and family that, even like pastors, they all mean well, but I think we have this misconception that if the person isn't hitting you, it's not really that bad, right? And then a lot of us, we're not even aware of our self-limiting beliefs. We don't even know we're limiting ourselves. I mean, I see it a lot. I think it takes such a huge level of self-awareness to even know you have those I mean, some people blatantly say, I can't, I won't. Like they're always saying no, like before they give you a yes, the no is already there. And I
Right.
think that's easier to pick up on. But then I think there's even more layers, like, peeling the layers away of an onion, right? So I'm happy that you did all that work and that we have you and that I've met you and that you do the Break the Silence with Angeline podcast. And um how have you used that, like literally as a voice, right? In the
Right.
community and the nation and the world at large to help other women find their voice? Like, how do you do that?
Well, I do that because I have a strong social media presence and I have a lot of followers now and women coming to me because they want to share their story. Now, for example, this young woman who escaped Iran,
Mm,
she's fighting for women's rights in Iran because of all the events that are going on. Her publicist reached out to me about a month ago because she listened to one of my podcast episodes
okay.
and she found it so inspiring, and because not only inspiring but giving women that voice,
Mhm.
that's so important today.
Right.
Okay, not that men don't have a voice, okay, because I have some male friends who have gone through abuse, and I actually had one male. I have one male guest on my podcast about a month and a half ago. So he shared his story. But my podcast focuses on women because women have a voice. We have a voice, and it's up to us to amplify that voice
Hmm.
and to give women hope, especially now with the holidays coming. We have Thanksgiving tomorrow, we have the holidays. Some women who are going through a transition now, and I can certainly relate to this. They don't know, like they want to spend time with family, but then they feel ostracized
Hmm.
because they feel that their own family doesn't support them. So, it's important to have outlets. Okay. So, one thing I do highly recommend is to have an outlet, and social media is huge for me. I'm on TikTok now. I've been there for a year and a half. I have over 8,300 followers, and I'm looking to scale that to over 10,000 followers because that platform forget it. I mean, there are so, many women now who are speaking out, even actresses who are speaking out. But regarding my platform, my podcast, my platform gives women their voice. And I think that's what makes it so special. And I'm real, my podcast, they're very real and genuine, and they share their real life stories. I had two women coaches from Australia speak out about domestic violence and trauma. So
Mhm.
my podcast has a variety of women guests from all over the country, and it started with a vision and a dream 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And I had to learn how to, promote that effectively. Meaning, like with my podcast, I have a specific niche. It's not just all the masses, it's a particular niche: divorced women and domestic abuse survivors. So helping them find their voice is huge. I mean, that's what we need right now. We need to focus more on this issue because I feel that it's still swept under the carpet. But now people are speaking out. There are women speaking out on TikTok, and they share their stories, and I want them to be part of my podcast too. So that's something that I am working on, including my coaching business. I'm starting. I put a pause on my coaching business for about 6 months, but now I'm ready to relaunch again. So, and it's going to be big. It's going to be really, really good. I'm really super happy because I've aligned myself with this amazing community of God fearing women. Elena, you're in there too, and that's how we connected. And I want to bring that part, to the table, and to encourage women, to coach women, that they can go from victim to victor. Number one, okay, if I could do it, they could do it. Number one, helping them go on a path of rediscovery and taking ownership of their lives. I take women through many, I take them through about 8 or 9 steps to, reclaim their power and to rediscover themselves. Those are the same strategies that I used when I was going through my self discovery. So it's a matter of like, for women, self discovery and realizing their self worth and learning to love themselves and going out. I go out by myself all the time. I do have friends, but a lot of them are married now. So I've just, I've learned to adapt and just to adapt to change and to, I go out by myself, I go shopping. Like tomorrow, I'm going to go out for dinner. I'm going to go out for breakfast in the morning. So I've learned, I've learned to adapt to that change. It's hard, but it can be done as long as you have that self worth and self confidence. So through that intensive I took 3 years ago, it changed my life. And that's how I started my podcast. And now we are in 7 countries, and including the Philippines, which I never knew would happen, but it's like we're all over now. And I'm really super excited for the future. God has a lot in store for us. And, I trust God, and God is my, salvation. So, I mean, I saved myself, but, I've aligned myself with God. I'm a Christian. I'm more spiritual. I don't believe in the religion, and that's okay. We all have different beliefs, but I was able to, I'm very proud of myself because I broke through those generational curses. So I'm very, very happy that I was able to prove a lot of people wrong, and, just step into my own power and to my own naked truth. And my mentor, who, I still talk to, he said, Angeline, you have to share your story. Once you share your story with the world, he said, you're going to have breakthroughs. And he was right. I didn't realize it, being vulnerable and just sharing your story with the world. And, I don't care what other people think.
Mhm.
And that's one limiting belief I had to really break through. Okay. I had to work through that, but I was able to do it. So I'm very proud of
What's the
myself.
limiting belief, just to be obvious what it is?
Well, limiting belief is um
When you said
saying,
you
well,
said you
say,
didn't care about other people's opinions, what's the limiting belief behind that that you broke free from, is for clarification purposes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's a good question. So that limiting belief was, my parents would tell me, people don't care what you do. Like, or, I think that's a limiting belief, but
Mhm.
saying to yourself, you have to keep, you have to just break through it, meaning, you have to tear down those walls. And I had built up a big wall for myself because some of those things were instilled in me
Mhm.
from childhood. So I had to break through. I had to go through. I mean, I went for therapy 1 year before my divorce. I was going through a lot of therapy, and it made my therapist was really good, and she made me realize that I could live on my own. But I still had to break through those self-limiting beliefs because I was in the online space. I wasn't in corporate America anymore. So I had to, break through and just feel worthy.
Mhm.
When you feel worthy and you feel confident of yourself, and when you put good out to the universe, it comes back to you tenfold. In other words, you put good things out to the universe, don't ask for anything in return, but then abundance starts to flow to you. So,
There's a lot of power in being a positive person and making deposits of positivity in the world around you and in other people, and just, creating positive forward momentum, right?
right,
In
exactly.
general. And that's another thing. And you mentioned a little bit that we're on an online space with another, like a group of women that they're like-minded Christian women who are business minded, entrepreneurial types that love God and love other women, and which is Girl Power Alliance. And it's a wonderful community where you and I connected, and we all have obviously I have my own podcast, you have yours. We all have our own focus of where God wants us to work in ourselves and with other people. And I just think for anybody who's curious, it's a great place to do work on yourself with the support of a community. And it's also a great space if you are a entrepreneur or a leader in the community or want to be. It's a great space for you to be able to come in and get the support that you need and tools that you can use to bring back to your own community. So can't say enough good things about it. And I think that's also helping a lot of women find their voice. And I love what
Yes,
you said about
absolutely.
you have women come onto your podcast and share their story, because every story is unique. Everybody's journey is different. They, like, you experienced a huge breakthrough. I would say, just from listening to you, your breakthrough started the moment that he grabbed you by the hair and you broke your nose. And then I'm like, I cannot imagine spending another 7 or 8 years walking around, I'm guessing, on eggshells, wondering when the axe is going to drop again and what's going to happen. Having to live like that would just be a nightmare, to constantly have to worry about when is this going to happen again, and if it's going to happen again. And I mean, thank God you found the strength to have the courage to say, you know what, I can't live like this anymore, constantly, worrying about what's going to come next, and the fact that you're giving other women their voice, you're inviting them onto your podcast to share their stories, and they're not just, like you said, surviving, but thriving, their ability to grow and evolve and become better versions. And I do believe with God, become better versions of ourselves than we ever imagined we could ever be. So it's an amazing story. And I'm very proud of you. And I'm watching us all grow as we all grow together and individually. And I know you mentioned going out by yourself. I think there is a stigma in our society about women who sit alone at a table, right? But or they go grab their own cup of coffee, or their own date. I say be your own date.
Right.
If you can't enjoy your own company, who else is going to enjoy it? I mean, come on, make it a priority to enjoy your own company, whether you're married, you're single, you're in a dating relationship, whatever. I think it's important to find time to spend alone time with yourself and alone time with God. and listen to that still small voice. I mean, I know like sometimes I'll text you or call you, you're like, oh, I'm having lunch with myself. Like you don't say by myself, like you don't feel sorry for yourself like some people
No,
might. So I love that you've got this independent fire in you.
I do. In a little bit, I'm gonna go have lunch with, there's a going away party happening in 45 minutes. So I'm gonna be going to a going away party here at my landlord's office. I'm truly blessed that I have a really great landlord. And it's gonna be great. I can't wait. Yeah, one of their workers is leaving after 23 years. So, again, I'm going by myself, but it's okay. And then I'm going out by myself for coffee afterwards, and then
Okay.
and then home and getting ready for tomorrow. So I feel truly blessed. So yes, let's strive to be the best version of ourselves. And that requires a lot of inner work, a lot, and just having that confidence. And Girl Power Alliance has changed my life too. I mean, I've been part of the community for, I think it's 2 months now, and it has changed my life. So that's a great community. There's a lot of, resources there where women can go. So, it's great. I love it. I love it. And because of Girl Power Alliance, Eleni and I connected. So, and I'm on this podcast. So there's hope out there, ladies. Just, keep being you, be authentically you, just be yourself. Okay. And, um, life is a journey. There's going to be ups and downs. There's peaks and valleys. That's just part of life, but stay true to yourself. And, don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because you are worthy, you are special, and you are beautiful.
Thank you so much, Angeline, for spending time with us today. Some key takeaways. You don't have to be just a survivor. You can be a thriver. We know the holidays can bring their own special kind of stress, and we just encourage you to keep your head up. You can get through it, and reach out if you want any type of support, if you're interested in finding out about getting life coaching for myself or Angeline, if you want to know more about Girl Power Alliance and what that is and how that might be a great place for you to plug in and get more support. So nothing is impossible for God. Find moments, little pockets of time you can spend with him, times that you can spend with yourself, and build a positive momentum for yourself, even in the darkest hour. Again, Thanksgiving has its own special challenges, as does Christmas if you're in an abusive relationship. Listen to Angeline's podcast and draw encouragement from it to find your voice if you're in one of those situations right now. Listen to my podcast. My podcast is about feeling worthy, worth it, and loved. Just between the two of us, if you see yourself being in the middle of this love sandwich, okay, where you're being supported, you're being poured into, just know that you do matter. Your voice deserves to be heard, and you are worth it. So this is Eleni signing off. Thank you so much, Angeline, for spending time with us today. Again, Angeline Constantinou from Let's Break the Silence with Angeline. And I hope you have a blessed rest of your day.
Thank you. And you too, Eleni. Thank you.
My pleasure.